A 60GB PlayStation 3 for $599 US.
If we don't learn from history, then history is doomed to repeat itself. So recently the PlayStation 5 Pro got revealed and I wanted to share my thoughts on it. With a price tag not even the most die-hard fans could redeem, let alone Chad Warden himself. This console generation for Sony in particular has been a strange one. The presentation was led by Mark Cerner, who is an impressive console architect, helping make the PlayStation 2, PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation 5, which are all great consoles. But this time around personally, I wasn't picking up a lot of what he was putting down.
Creators have made amazing use of the hardware capabilities, but when I talk to them, I do hear about their desire for more graphics performance. The dreams of the developers are bigger than can be supported at 60 frames per second.
Like which developers are asking for this, he doesn't even specify. The price for game development nowadays is costing in the hundred millions, with recent examples being Insomniac Spider-Man 2 having a budget of up to $315 million. Compare that to Grand Theft Auto 5, which released well over a decade ago and broke the record for game development budget by costing $137 million. My point here is that stronger specs are pushing game development, which is already increasing development time. The PlayStation 5 Pro is only going to further balloon this issue, having devs have to further chase more fidelity in titles and now have to target 4K 60fps for games. So that's my first issue with this system, it's already increasing the high bar for developers. My next issue is the comparisons. Take a look. You really have to squint your eyes to see, but the long and short of it is that the PlayStation 5 Pro can handle both performance and fidelity modes over how previously with most titles you would have to choose between them on the original PlayStation 5. Which is not bad overall and it's probably the best addition the system offers. Anyway, so now look at the compatibility list. 13 games, that's it so far. Compare that to the PlayStation 4 Pro, sure that upgrade got dunked at launch, but so many games have support for it. I'll just show some on screen right now. Pretty much every game that released in 2016 onwards had support for this system. It didn't matter, niche titles or mainstream, so many games benefited from this performance jump back in 2016. Before this upgrade, we had games like the beloved Bloodborne stuck running at 20 to 30 frames per second, which to the average player isn't a huge deal, but the Pro gave every release afterwards like Sekiro and Dark Souls 3 the 60 frames per second treatment. In retrospect, looking back, the PlayStation 4 Pro was very much justified for its time. Not only did it improve vastly on games compared to the base model, but it only released 3 years after the PlayStation 4, whereas the PlayStation 5 Pro is releasing 4 years later on a console with even less exclusives. There are also some big games missing from this list, like for instance Where Stellar Blade, that game only came out this year, same goes for the critically beloved Black Myth Wukong. Even games like Elden Ring would benefit from being able to have both performance and fidelity options on. Or one of my favourite games that came out recently, Visions of Mana. This game looks beautiful whether you're playing on fidelity or performance mode, but still, the lack of support shows just how small this supposed upgrade is. And don't worry, I'm getting to the price point. When you insert these games into a PlayStation 5 Pro, you're only going to get to pick between the two options unless the devs go back and patch it in. Bloodborne will still run the same as it did back on the base PlayStation 4. I feel bad for Guerrilla Games having to constantly go back and tweak the Horizon series to run on these upgrades. It must cost at least some time and money, which will be way better invested into a new project in my opinion. So yeah, point number 2 is that this is inferior to the previous Pro upgrade and honestly has no place in the current gaming climate where devs are struggling to keep up with high budgets on games that shouldn't even cost as much as they do now. They haven't shown the numbers, but the price of developing a game for the Switch is way less than the PlayStation 5, you know why? Because the lower performance and specs allow developers not to waste time rendering every NPC in the background of an area that you'll only see for 10 seconds. And if you don't see eye to eye with this, the proof is in the first party output. Anyway, moving on. Now for point number 3, the price. Damn, this one has to be seen to be believed. I know PlayStation has been celebrating its past with the goated release of Astro Bot, but you didn't have to reference the PlayStation 3 launch price of all things. This is insane by the way, props to them hating on the UK, we got absolutely destroyed with the exchange rate here, this should be illegal. On top of that, it's all digital unless you want to fork out an extra $80 for a disc drive, don't forget the stand if you want to lay it flat by the way. This is a crazy move and feels at home with Apple products, so I'm sure some people are conditioned to be okay with this kind of money scalping. Recently in Japan, the price of the base PlayStation 5 has seen a huge hike, and in America, DualSenses have gone up by $5. I thought consoles got cheaper over the course of a generation, not increase in price. I'm kind of worried with Sony's decisions this generation. This year alone feels like they've made so many changes that I don't agree with. I feel like their constant push for hardware improvements is reaching diminishing returns, and that this will probably have a knock-on effect with their next system. Only time will truly tell, but it feels like this is somewhat of a turning point, showing where their priorities lie. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Also, instead of spending money on this system, buy 10 copies of Astro Bot instead. This is easily Sony's best game released in this decade. Also, I've seen people online mention how this is more of a luxury item and that the equivalent in the PC market will be more expensive. But being realistic, if they get away with the console nearly costing up to $1,000 for us in the UK and can get away with it, that is a scary standard going into the PlayStation 6 and would easily cost people out of the hobby with no cheaper alternative. Even as someone who loves specs and seeing games run at their absolute peak, it's hard to justify this kind of system. The mid-cycle console upgrade was really only established last generation, and like what phone companies do, feels somewhat malicious. It's also somewhat pointless and only really appeals to a small rich audience of people. Between this and the release of Concord, I'm worried about Sony with PlayStation, but I'm sure this system will sell well regardless, and maybe a few years down the line I'll realise I'm wrong here like with the PlayStation 4 Pro. Thanks for watching this negative video of mine. I hope I wasn't too heated. Just wanted to get my thoughts out there along with some of my concerns. Also, my previous video kinda bombed hard, so I'm kinda just venting out my frustrations with this one. But what do you think? Will you be buying this upgrade, or do you agree that this is pushing it a bit too far? Maybe somewhere down the line when the PlayStation 6 supports the PlayStation 5 Pro, I might realise that this system is pretty decent. Also, any feedback in the comments will be greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching and have a nice rest of your day.